Tesla isn't just a car company. It's a revolution. In this audio, you'll discover how a bold startup defied the odds, disrupted a century-old industry, and forced the world's biggest automakers to chase the future. From Elon Musk's daring vision to the near-death struggles, the culture, the controversies, and the breakthroughs, this is the story of how Tesla changed everything. Stay with me because once you hear it, you'll never see innovation the same way again. Origins and founding of Tesla. The story of Tesla doesn't begin with Elon Musk, though his name is now inseparable from it. The roots of Tesla go back to 2003, when two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, set out with a bold idea. They wanted to prove that electric cars didn't have to be boring, slow, or ugly. They believed an electric car could be exciting, fast, sleek, and practical, and that it could change the way the world thought about transportation. At the time, the idea seemed almost foolish. The auto industry was massive, powerful, and deeply resistant to change. Electric vehicles had been attempted before, but they were usually dismissed as golf carts for the environmentally obsessed, not real cars for everyday drivers. Big automakers had no interest in pursuing them. But Eberhard and Tarpenning saw something others didn't. They saw that battery technology was advancing. They saw that costs could be driven down. They saw a gap where innovation could live. The name they chose was Tesla Motors, honoring Nikola Tesla, the genius inventor who helped shape modern electricity. They wanted their company to carry that same spirit of daring invention and disruption. Early Tesla was nothing glamorous. It was a startup like any other, surviving on small rounds of funding, working out of modest offices, chasing an idea that many people dismissed. But these founders had conviction. They wanted to build an electric sports car that could prove the skeptics wrong. This is where Elon Musk enters the picture. Musk, already known for his success with PayPal, was looking for his next big venture. He was fascinated by technology that could change the world. Clean energy, space exploration, revolutionary ideas. When he met with Tesla's founders and saw their vision, he recognized the potential immediately. Musk became Tesla's first major investor, putting in millions of his own money. In fact, his early investment, over $6 million, was critical to Tesla's survival. Without it, the dream might have died before it even had the chance to grow. Musk didn't just invest, though. He pushed his way into the heart of the company, joining the board and soon exerting his influence over big decisions. From the very beginning, tensions existed. Tesla was born out of the engineer's vision, but Musk had a different kind of ambition, bigger, bolder, more demanding. He wasn't content with building just a nice electric sports car. He wanted to revolutionize the entire industry. He wanted Tesla to be more than a niche company. He wanted it to be the company that proved electric vehicles could lead the future of transportation. The seeds of both Tesla's success and Tesla's struggles were planted here, in its founding years. On one side, you had passionate engineers chasing a dream. On the other, you had Elon Musk with his uncompromising vision and willingness to take enormous risks. The combination would prove powerful but also volatile. Tesla's origin story reminds us of something important. Every great revolution starts with a small group of people willing to look foolish, to challenge the status quo, and to risk everything for an idea. It began with two engineers who refused to accept the limits of the auto industry. And it grew when a billionaire with an almost reckless drive to change the world decided to throw his weight behind them. This was the birth of Tesla, a company that began as a daring bet, a fragile experiment, and a spark of vision, soon to become one of the most disruptive forces the auto industry had ever seen. Musk's vision and risk-taking. When Elon Musk stepped into Tesla, he didn't just bring money. He brought something far more powerful: vision. And not just any vision, but one so big, so audacious, that most people couldn't even wrap their heads around it. For Musk, Tesla was never about building just one car. It was never about being a boutique sports car company that appealed to a small group of enthusiasts. From the beginning, he saw Tesla as the spearhead of a movement. He wanted to upend the auto industry, destroy the myth that electric cars were weak and impractical, and prove that clean energy could compete with and even outperform fossil fuels. This kind of thinking defined Musk. Where others saw barriers, he saw possibilities. Where others saw risks, he saw opportunities. He was driven by the idea of first principles, breaking problems down to their core truths and reasoning up from there. To Musk, it was simple. Cars need energy, batteries store energy, battery technology was improving, therefore an electric car could be built that would outperform anything on the road. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a dream. It was physics and engineering. But vision without risk means nothing. And Musk has always been willing to risk more than most people can even imagine. In those early years, Tesla was on the edge of collapse multiple times. Production delays, technical hurdles, financial shortfalls. It seemed like every month brought another crisis. Most investors would have walked away. Most CEOs would have scaled back their dreams, cut costs, and tried to survive quietly. But not Musk. When Tesla was running out of money in 2008, he didn't just hope for a miracle. He put his own fortune on the line. He poured tens of millions of dollars, nearly every cent he had made from PayPal, into the company. He risked bankruptcy. He risked his reputation. He risked it all because he believed the mission was worth it. Think about that for a moment. In 2008, the global financial system was collapsing. Automakers everywhere were struggling, even giants like General Motors. To pour your entire fortune into an electric car startup at that moment, it looked insane. And yet, without Musk's decision, Tesla would have died. That leap of faith, that almost reckless risk-taking, kept the dream alive. But Musk's risk-taking wasn't just financial. It was also personal. He staked his identity, his credibility, and his time on Tesla. He micromanaged designs, obsessed over details, pushed engineers to the edge of exhaustion. He was relentless because he believed failure was not an option. And while that created enormous pressure, it also created breakthroughs. Tesla achieved things that the auto industry thought were impossible, precisely because Musk refused to play by conventional rules. Musk's vision wasn't just about cars. It was about the future of humanity. In his mind, Tesla wasn't just a business. It was a mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. To him, building electric cars wasn't just profitable. It was necessary for the survival of the planet. That conviction gave him the courage to take risks that others would never dare. Of course, this same boldness made him polarizing. To some, he was a visionary genius, risking everything for a better future. To others, he was reckless, arrogant, and dangerous with his decisions. But love him or hate him, no one could ignore him. And no one could deny that his willingness to gamble everything, to bet on an idea when others doubted, was the very reason Tesla survived. This is the heart of Musk's leadership, an uncompromising vision paired with an almost fearless appetite for risk. It is what propelled Tesla from a fragile startup into a company that could shake the foundations of the global auto industry. And it's a lesson for anyone listening. If you want to change the world, or even just change your own life, you need more than dreams. You need vision. And then you need the courage to risk for that vision. Most people stop at the dream. Musk didn't. He bet his fortune, his career, and his reputation. And that is why Tesla exists today. Leadership conflicts and consolidation of power. Every great company has its battles behind the scenes. And Tesla, in its early years, was no different. If the story of Tesla's founding was about vision and possibility, the next chapter was about conflict. Conflict over who would truly lead this company, and whose vision would define its future. Tesla was born from the minds of Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. They were the engineers, the original founders, the ones who dreamed up the idea of an electric sports car. For them, Tesla was a daring experiment, a chance to prove that an electric car didn't have to be boring. They wanted to build the Roadster, show the world it could be done, and carve out a niche in the market. Then came Elon Musk. At first, he was the financial backer, the investor who saved the company with his millions. But Musk was never content to sit quietly in the background. He had a larger vision, and he had the determination and the personality to force that vision forward. This created tension almost immediately. Musk's standards were brutally high. He wanted perfection in every detail, from the way the car looked to the way it performed. He was relentless, demanding changes, pushing deadlines, challenging engineers. To many inside the company, it felt like he was constantly moving the goalposts, never satisfied, never willing to compromise. For Eberhard, this was exhausting. He was already under incredible pressure trying to bring the Roadster to life with limited resources and a skeptical industry watching. Now he had Musk over his shoulder, criticizing, questioning, and pushing. The relationship quickly soured. Eberhard began to see Musk not just as an investor, but as an intruder. Someone who didn't understand the daily grind of engineering but still wanted to control every decision. Musk, on the other hand, saw Eberhard as too slow, too cautious, too willing to accept flaws. In Musk's eyes, Tesla could not afford mediocrity. If they were going to succeed, they had to be extraordinary. And if the existing leadership couldn't deliver that, he was ready to take control himself. The conflict escalated. Meetings turned tense. Emails became battlegrounds. Tesla, still fragile and fighting for survival, was now consumed by internal power struggles. And in the middle of it all, employees were forced to pick sides. Were they loyal to the original founder, or to the man funding the company's future? Eventually, the clash came to a breaking point. In 2007, Martin Eberhard was forced out as CEO. Officially, it was framed as a leadership change for the good of the company. Unofficially, it was Musk consolidating power. Musk was not yet CEO, but his influence was undeniable. He had the money, he had the board support, and soon he would have the title as well. The ousting of Eberhard was controversial. Some saw it as betrayal, a founder pushed aside in his own company. Others saw it as necessary. Musk was the only one with the drive and the resources to keep Tesla alive. But one thing was clear. From that point on, Tesla was Musk's company. His vision, his standards, his leadership style would dominate everything. And his leadership style was unlike anything the auto industry had seen. He was aggressive, demanding, sometimes ruthless. He pushed people to their limits, often beyond them. He had no patience for excuses. If you couldn't keep up, you were out. Tesla became a place of extreme pressure, but also extreme innovation. Under Musk, impossible goals were set, and somehow, more often than not, they were met. This consolidation of power was both Tesla's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. On one hand, it gave Tesla a clear direction. There was no confusion about who was in charge or what the mission was. Musk's vision drove everything forward. On the other hand, it created a culture of fear, burnout, and constant turnover. Many talented people couldn't handle the pressure. But those who stayed, the ones who survived Musk's intensity, helped Tesla achieve what no one thought was possible. This chapter of Tesla's story is messy, filled with personal conflict and professional tension. But it highlights an essential truth about startups and revolutions. They are rarely clean. They are forged in conflict, shaped by competing visions, and often led by those who are willing to fight the hardest for control. Elon Musk fought for control of Tesla. He clashed with the original founder, endured the criticism, and made enemies along the way. But in the end, he won. And from that point forward, Tesla was no longer just a company, it was an extension of Musk himself. His vision, his ambition, his relentless drive. Whether you admire that or condemn it, one fact remains. Without Musk consolidating power, Tesla might never have survived. And with Musk in command, Tesla was ready to push boundaries in ways the world had never seen before. Innovation and first principles thinking. If there is one thing that truly sets Tesla apart from the traditional auto industry, it is innovation. Not the kind of incremental change that most companies pursue, but bold, fundamental reinvention. And at the heart of this innovation is Elon Musk's reliance on what he calls first principles thinking. Most companies, especially in a century-old industry like automobiles, operate by analogy. They look at what has been done before, and then they make small adjustments, small improvements. If one car company builds a slightly better engine, the others try to match it. If a competitor adds a new feature, everyone else copies it. This is how the auto industry has worked for decades. Slow, safe, predictable. But Musk doesn't think that way. He doesn't accept "this is how it's always been done" as a valid reason to do anything. First principles thinking forces you to strip away assumptions, to break problems down to their most basic truths, and then build up from there. Let's take batteries as an example. In the early 2000s, the auto industry largely dismissed the idea of building long-range electric cars because they believed batteries would always be too expensive, too heavy, and too weak. They looked at the existing numbers, compared them to gas engines, and shrugged. To them, the math didn't work. Musk, however, refused to accept that. He asked, "What are batteries, really? They're just a collection of chemical materials: nickel, cobalt, aluminum, lithium. If you calculate the cost of those raw materials on the commodity market, the price per kilowatt hour should be far cheaper than what battery packs were selling for. So why the gap?" The answer was inefficiency in design, in manufacturing, and in scaling. That insight, driven by first principles, was the seed of Tesla's battery strategy. The same thinking applied to Tesla's cars themselves. Traditional automakers designed vehicles around the gas engine, then awkwardly tried to swap it out for an electric motor. Tesla asked a different question. What if we designed a car from the ground up to be electric? That meant putting the battery pack at the bottom of the chassis for stability, designing software to control every aspect of performance, and building a system that could be upgraded remotely through over-the-air updates. This was radical. Automakers had never considered that cars could receive software updates the way smartphones do. To Tesla, it was obvious. Why should a car be frozen in time the moment you drive it off the lot? Why shouldn't it get better over time, smarter, safer, faster? That leap of thinking transformed Tesla from just another car company into a tech company on wheels. And it wasn't just the product. Innovation extended to how Tesla built and sold its cars. Instead of relying on dealerships, Tesla sold directly to consumers. This cut costs, but more importantly, it gave Tesla complete control over the customer experience. Traditional automakers thought it was impossible. Dealerships were too entrenched. But Tesla refused to play by those rules. They built sleek showrooms, created excitement, and marketed cars in ways the industry had never tried, without spending billions on advertising. Musk's first principles thinking also drove Tesla's obsession with vertical integration. Most automakers outsource parts and depend heavily on suppliers. Tesla decided to do as much as possible in-house, from battery design to software. This gave Tesla control over innovation speed, quality, and cost. It was harder, riskier, and far more expensive upfront. But in the long run, it created a moat that competitors struggled to cross. Of course, innovation at Tesla wasn't just about cold logic. It was also about imagination. Musk pushed engineers to attempt what others thought was impossible. He demanded performance from electric vehicles that would rival the best gas cars in the world. He wanted the Tesla Roadster to go 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. He wanted the Model S to have a range over 300 miles when most electric cars barely scraped 100. People said it couldn't be done. The physics wouldn't allow it. The costs were too high. But Musk's refusal to accept limits, paired with his team's relentless problem-solving, made the impossible real. And when Tesla unveiled cars that were faster, sleeker, and more advanced than anything the industry had imagined, the world finally began to pay attention. This is what innovation looks like. Not just small improvements, but total rethinking. Not just copying the past, but questioning every assumption and daring to start fresh. Tesla's story reminds us that breakthroughs don't happen by doing what's safe. They happen when you strip problems to their core truths and then build solutions from the ground up. And here's the lesson for all of us. You don't have to be Elon Musk or run a billion-dollar company to use first principles thinking. You can use it in your own life. Ask yourself, what assumptions am I accepting without question? What rules am I following just because everyone else does? What if I stripped my problems down to their basics? What's truly possible? Tesla applied that thinking to cars. You can apply it to your career, your finances, your health, your dreams. The principle is the same. Don't be limited by what others think is possible. Question. Redefine. Innovate. That is the spirit that made Tesla more than just another startup. It made Tesla a disruptor, a company that forced the world to rethink what a car could be. And it all began with the courage to innovate and the discipline to think from first principles. Model S and market disruption. Every company has a moment that defines it, a moment when it steps out of the shadows and proves to the world that it is more than just an idea. For Tesla, that moment came with the Model S. Before the Model S, Tesla had the Roadster. The Roadster was proof of concept. It showed that an electric car could be sleek, fast, and exciting. But it was still a niche product, expensive and limited in appeal. To the critics, Tesla was still just a boutique automaker, a curiosity on the fringes of the industry. The question remained, could Tesla scale? Could it build a car not just for wealthy enthusiasts, but one that could truly disrupt the mainstream market? The answer came in 2012, when Tesla unveiled the Model S. This was not just another electric car. This was a luxury sedan that redefined what a car could be. It had breathtaking acceleration, able to go from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. It had a sleek, futuristic design that rivaled the best German automakers. And most importantly, it had a driving range of over 300 miles, shattering the myth that electric cars could never compete with gasoline on distance. The Model S wasn't a compromise. It wasn't a quirky alternative vehicle. It was, in many ways, better than the best gas cars on the market. Suddenly, the idea of electric cars being weak, boring, or impractical was destroyed. Tesla had not only built an electric car, it had built a car that people actually desired. And then there was the technology. They were used to competing on horsepower, on price points, on brand prestige. Tesla was competing on a different level entirely. It was combining performance, technology, and sustainability in a way no one else dared. And customers noticed. Reviews for the Model S were glowing. It won Motor Trend's Car of the Year, captured imaginations. And most importantly, it proved Tesla could build not just a good car, but a great one. The Model S marked the true beginning of Tesla's disruption of the auto industry. It was the moment the world realized this wasn't just another startup destined to fail. It was a company capable of rewriting the rules. The release of the Model S sent shockwaves through Detroit, Germany, Japan, and beyond. Automakers who had ignored electric vehicles for decades suddenly found themselves on notice. Tesla had shown that the future was coming, whether they liked it or not. But the Model S was more than just a market success. It was a statement of philosophy. Tesla wasn't trying to slowly ease the world into electric cars. It wasn't satisfied with building something good enough. The Model S was proof of Musk's belief that if you wanted to change the world, you had to start at the top. You had to build something extraordinary, something people would lust after, not just tolerate. By making electric cars aspirational, Tesla broke through cultural resistance that had held the industry back for decades. Of course, the Model S didn't solve all of Tesla's problems. The company still faced massive production challenges, financial strain, and skepticism from analysts. But it changed the conversation. Tesla was no longer just a startup struggling for survival. It was a legitimate competitor, one that had embarrassed the giants of the industry with a single product. And here lies the lesson. True disruption doesn't come from being slightly better than the competition. It comes from being radically different, from offering something so compelling that it forces people to rethink their assumptions. The Model S wasn't just another car on the road. It was a symbol of what was possible when innovation meets vision. Think about that in your own life. Too often, we aim for incremental improvement. We try to be just a little bit better, just a little safer. But sometimes, the breakthrough comes when you stop playing by the existing rules and create something entirely new. Tesla didn't beat Mercedes or BMW by being a slightly better luxury sedan. It beat them by being something they weren't even trying to be. The Model S changed Tesla. It changed the auto industry. And it changed the way the world thought about electric cars. It wasn't the end of Tesla's journey, not by a long shot. But it was the moment Tesla proved it belonged on the global stage. From this point forward, Tesla wasn't just surviving. It was leading. Manufacturing challenges and the Model 3 ramp-up. If the Model S was Tesla's coming-out party, the Model 3 was its ultimate test. The Model S had proven that an electric car could be fast, luxurious, and desirable. But it was expensive, far out of reach for the average driver. If Tesla wanted to truly fulfill its mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, it needed to build a car for the masses. That car was the Model 3. Announced in 2016, the Model 3 was pitched as Tesla's affordable electric car. Sleek, minimalist, and packed with technology, it carried a starting price of $35,000. Suddenly, owning a Tesla wasn't just for the wealthy. It was for anyone who wanted to be part of the future. The public response was explosive. Hundreds of thousands of people put down deposits before the car was even built. The excitement was unmatched. The world believed in Tesla's promise. But promises are one thing. Delivering is another. Building luxury cars in small numbers is difficult. Mass-producing hundreds of thousands of vehicles is on an entirely different level. And this is where Tesla faced its greatest challenge yet: scaling manufacturing. The traditional auto industry has spent over a century perfecting the art of building cars efficiently. Complex supply chains, robotic assembly lines, supplier relationships, this was their domain. Tesla, by comparison, was still a young company. And yet, Elon Musk wasn't content to copy old methods. True to form, he wanted to reinvent manufacturing itself. Musk often referred to factories as the machine that builds the machine. In his mind, the car was only half the innovation. The factory itself had to be revolutionary. He pushed Tesla's engineers to automate everything. Robots upon robots, systems upon systems, a vision of futuristic assembly lines that could churn out cars with superhuman precision. But reality hit hard. Instead of flawless efficiency, the factory became a bottleneck. Robots malfunctioned. Systems jammed. Processes that looked perfect on paper collapsed under real-world strain. The dream of a fully automated factory quickly turned into what Musk himself later called production hell. The company bled money. Deadlines slipped. Customers grew impatient. Critics circled, declaring that Tesla had overreached, that the Model 3 would be the company's undoing. Short sellers bet millions that Tesla would collapse. At times, even survival looked uncertain. And yet, this is where Musk's risk-taking and relentless drive once again came into play. He refused to give up. When the Fremont factory couldn't keep up, Tesla threw up an entirely new assembly line under a giant tent in the parking lot. It was scrappy, chaotic, and unorthodox, but it worked. Cars started rolling off the line. Slowly at first, then faster. Tesla pushed through sheer willpower. Musk himself practically lived in the factory during this time. He slept on the floor, worked around the clock, and drove his teams to exhaustion. For some, it was unbearable. For others, it was inspiring. But one thing was undeniable. Tesla was fighting with everything it had. And eventually, it paid off. After months of near disaster, the Model 3 ramp-up stabilized. Tesla hit its production goals. Deliveries soared. Revenue followed. And with the Model 3, Tesla didn't just prove it could make cars for the masses, it proved it could mass-produce them at scale. The Model 3 became Tesla's best-selling vehicle and one of the best-selling electric cars in history. It transformed Tesla from a niche automaker into a global force. The skeptics who said Tesla couldn't compete with the giants suddenly had to face the reality. Tesla had done what they said was impossible. But the story of the Model 3 is more than just manufacturing challenges. It's a story about persistence, about refusing to quit when the obstacles seem insurmountable, about finding scrappy solutions when the elegant ones fail. The giant tent in the parking lot became a symbol of Tesla's ethos. Do whatever it takes to get it done. There's a lesson here for all of us. Big goals always sound exciting at the start. But when you get into the middle, the grind, the setbacks, the frustrations, that's where most people quit. The Model 3 era was Tesla's grind. It was ugly, it was painful, and it nearly broke the company. But they didn't quit. They adapted, they pushed, they endured. And in the end, that persistence paid off with one of the most successful product launches in automotive history. The Model 3 was more than a car. It was proof that Tesla could survive the leap from bold startup to mainstream automaker. It was proof that vision paired with resilience could overcome even the harshest of realities. And it was the car that cemented Tesla's place as a disruptor. Not just of the luxury market, but of the entire auto industry. Direct-to-consumer strategy. For over a century, the auto industry operated in one way, through dealerships. You didn't buy a Ford or a Mercedes directly from the company. You went to a dealership, negotiated with salespeople, haggled over prices, and hoped you weren't being taken advantage of. Dealerships were the middlemen, deeply entrenched, politically powerful, and considered untouchable. No automaker dared to challenge this model. But Tesla did. From the very beginning, Tesla decided it would sell cars directly to customers. No dealerships, no middlemen, no endless negotiations. Instead, Tesla showrooms looked more like tech stores, sleek, modern, minimalist. The experience wasn't about haggling over price. It was about introducing customers to a vision of the future. This decision was revolutionary, and it was risky. The dealership system wasn't just tradition, it was law in many states. Dealership lobbies were powerful, and they fought Tesla tooth and nail, arguing that direct sales were unfair competition. Court battles were fought, laws were challenged, and Tesla faced bans in several markets. But Musk and his team refused to back down. To them, the dealership model was outdated, inefficient, and hostile to innovation. Why was this strategy so important? Because Tesla wasn't just selling a product. It was selling an idea. An electric car wasn't something most people understood in the early years. Customers had questions. How do you charge it? How far does it go? What happens if the battery runs out? Traditional dealerships had no interest in answering those questions. They made their money servicing gas cars and selling add-ons. Tesla needed complete control over the customer experience to educate, inspire, and win trust. By cutting out the middleman, Tesla achieved three things. First, it kept prices consistent. No haggling, no markups, no games. Second, it built a direct relationship with customers, allowing feedback to flow straight back to the company. Third, it turned buying a car into something new, an experience more like buying a piece of cutting-edge technology than a traditional automobile. This direct-to-consumer approach also transformed Tesla's marketing. Unlike other automakers, Tesla didn't spend billions on TV commercials, glossy magazine ads, or celebrity endorsements. Instead, Tesla relied on word-of-mouth, social media buzz, and the sheer magnetism of Elon Musk himself. Customers became evangelists. Driving a Tesla wasn't just owning a car. It was joining a movement, becoming part of the future. And the results spoke for themselves. Tesla showrooms began appearing in upscale malls and downtown districts, drawing crowds not unlike Apple stores when the first iPhone launched. People came in not just to buy, but to experience. To sit in the driver's seat, to see the giant touchscreen, to imagine themselves part of something bigger. Of course, this strategy wasn't easy. Lawsuits and bans continued. In some states, Tesla couldn't even open showrooms. But instead of giving up, Tesla leaned harder into online sales. Customers could configure and purchase a Tesla entirely through a website, the way you might order a phone or a laptop. It was seamless, simple, and revolutionary in an industry notorious for frustrating buying experiences. This approach did more than sell cars, it created loyalty. Customers felt connected directly to the company. They felt like insiders, pioneers helping drive a mission forward. That kind of emotional connection is priceless. And it became one of Tesla's greatest weapons in building a brand that people love fiercely, almost fanatically. Think about it. How many people proudly talk about their Toyota or their Ford as if it's a cause they believe in? Rarely. But Tesla owners? They'll tell you everything. They'll show you how the car updates itself, how fast it accelerates, how cheap it is to run. Tesla turned customers into advocates, and advocates into marketers. That's the power of direct connection. And there's a bigger lesson here for all of us. Sometimes the reason an industry is stuck is because everyone is playing by the same rules. They assume the rules can't be changed, so they never even try. Tesla looked at the dealership system and asked a simple question. Why? Why should it be this way? Why can't we connect directly with the people we serve? And that question turned into a revolution. In your own life, ask yourself, what rules am I blindly following? What middlemen are standing between me and the people I want to serve? What if I dared to cut them out and connect directly? Tesla's direct-to-consumer strategy wasn't just a business decision. It was a statement. Innovation doesn't stop at the product. It extends to the way you deliver it, the way you connect it to people, the way you shape the experience from beginning to end. By challenging the dealership model, Tesla didn't just change how cars are sold. It changed the very relationship between a company and its customers. And that disruption was every bit as powerful as the cars themselves. Strategic partnerships and the Gigafactory. If Tesla wanted to change the world, it needed more than great cars. It needed scale. And scaling an electric vehicle company meant one thing above all else: batteries. Batteries were the beating heart of Tesla's mission. They powered the cars, determined their range, and drove their costs. And in the early days, batteries were Tesla's greatest challenge. They were expensive, difficult to manufacture at scale, and heavily reliant on a fragile global supply chain. To make electric cars mainstream, Tesla had to solve the battery problem. This is where strategic partnerships became essential. Tesla was bold, but it was still a small company compared to the giants of the auto world. To compete, it needed allies. One of the most important of these was Panasonic. Panasonic had decades of expertise in battery technology, and Tesla needed that expertise badly. Together, the two companies struck a partnership that would change the future of electric vehicles. Panasonic would provide the know-how and manufacturing muscle, while Tesla would drive innovation, design, and integration into its vehicles. But partnerships alone weren't enough. Tesla needed not just batteries, it needed a lot of batteries. Enough to power hundreds of thousands, even millions of cars. Enough to drive down costs through economies of scale. Enough to make electric cars not just a niche, but the new standard. And so came one of the boldest ideas in Tesla's history, the Gigafactory. The Gigafactory was not just a factory. It was a statement. A sprawling facility in Nevada, designed to be one of the largest buildings in the world, dedicated entirely to battery production. The name said it all, Giga, a scale so massive that it dwarfed anything that had come before. The vision was staggering. By producing batteries at this scale, Tesla believed it could slash costs by more than 30%, making electric vehicles affordable to the masses. The factory itself would be powered by renewable energy, reflecting Tesla's mission of sustainability. And it wouldn't just produce batteries for cars. It would produce energy storage solutions for homes, businesses, and even entire cities. Critics scoffed. They said it was impossible, too ambitious, too expensive. A startup building one of the largest factories in the world? It sounded like science fiction. But Musk, true to form, pressed forward. He secured billions in investment, convinced Nevada to provide incentives, and poured Tesla's limited resources into making the Gigafactory real. And slowly, it began to rise from the desert. A vast complex, futuristic and sprawling, a physical embodiment of Tesla's ambition. Inside, Tesla and Panasonic worked side by side, developing advanced cells, streamlining production, and pushing the boundaries of battery technology. The Gigafactory wasn't just about numbers. It was about control. By owning its battery production, Tesla reduced its dependence on external suppliers. It could innovate faster, cut costs more aggressively, and secure the supply it needed to scale globally. In an industry where batteries were the bottleneck, Tesla was building its own key to unlock the future. This strategy extended beyond cars. With products like the Powerwall and Powerpack, Tesla began branching into energy storage. Homes could now store solar power for use at night. Businesses could stabilize their electricity. Entire communities could become less dependent on the grid. Tesla wasn't just building cars anymore, it was building an energy ecosystem. And once again, the lesson was clear. Partnerships matter, but so does bold ownership. Tesla leveraged Panasonic's expertise, but it didn't stop there. It built the infrastructure to control its own destiny. It didn't wait for the industry to solve the battery problem. It solved it itself. Think about what that means in your own life. Too often, we rely entirely on others for the most critical parts of our future. We depend on systems, on middlemen, on fragile connections. But what if, like Tesla, you decided to build your own foundation? What if you invested in creating the infrastructure, skills, habits, systems that make you independent and unstoppable? The Gigafactory was Tesla's foundation. A massive bet, a risk that could have bankrupted the company if it failed. But it didn't fail. It became one of the most important pieces of Tesla's success, enabling the scale that transformed it from a daring startup into a global leader. And that is the power of vision combined with execution. Strategic partnerships gave Tesla the tools. The Gigafactory gave Tesla the scale. Together, they gave Tesla the future. Culture, consequences, and controversies. Every groundbreaking company carries not only its triumphs, but also its shadows. Tesla is no exception. Behind the shiny cars, the soaring stock price, and the headlines about innovation, there has always been a deeper story. A story about the culture inside the company, the personal cost of relentless ambition, and the controversies that have followed Tesla at every step. Inside Tesla, the culture is unlike almost any other workplace. Employees describe it as thrilling, inspiring, and exhausting, all at once. On one hand, working at Tesla means being part of history. It means working on problems that matter, problems that could change the future of transportation and energy. For many, that sense of mission is intoxicating. It gives meaning to the long hours and the sleepless nights. But there is another side. The pressure is immense. Expectations are extreme. Deadlines are brutal. Elon Musk is famous for setting goals that seem impossible and then demanding his teams achieve them anyway. For some, this pressure brings out their best work. For others, it leads to burnout, frustration, and collapse. Turnover has always been high at Tesla. The company pushes people to their limits, and sometimes past them. Musk himself embodies this culture. He is tireless, demanding, and at times ruthless. He pushes himself as hard as he pushes others, sleeping in factories, working around the clock, refusing to accept failure. This inspires loyalty in some and fear in others. Employees know that working for Musk means walking a razor's edge between brilliance and chaos. And with this intensity come consequences. Tesla has faced lawsuits from former employees alleging discrimination, unsafe working conditions, and harassment. Reports have surfaced about injuries on the factory floor, about safety taking a backseat to speed. Critics argue that Tesla's culture of production at all costs comes with a human toll, one that is too easily overlooked in the pursuit of progress. Then there are the public controversies. Elon Musk, with his massive platform on social media, has become a lightning rod for attention. His tweets can send Tesla's stock soaring or crashing. His comments often stir outrage, admiration, or confusion. Musk is not a carefully polished CEO reading from a script. He is unfiltered, raw, sometimes reckless. And while this makes him beloved to some, it makes him deeply controversial to others. There have been moments when Tesla seemed to teeter on the edge of chaos, driven not just by external challenges but by Musk's own decisions. His infamous tweet about taking Tesla private at $420 a share triggered an SEC investigation and legal battles. His public feuds, off-the-cuff remarks, and unorthodox style of leadership have often made Tesla as much a media spectacle as a car company. Yet, for all the controversy, Tesla's momentum has not stopped. In fact, the very intensity of its culture and the unpredictability of its leader seem woven into its identity. Tesla is not a safe company. It is not a comfortable company. It is a company defined by extremes, extreme vision, extreme risk, extreme consequences. And here lies the paradox. Would Tesla have achieved what it has without this culture? Would it have disrupted the auto industry, built the Gigafactory, pushed into AI, or survived the near-death experiences without Musk's relentless drive and the culture it created? Or did the company succeed in spite of these things, at a cost too high for many of the people who helped build it? The answer is not simple. Perhaps it is both. Perhaps Tesla is the product of brilliance and chaos intertwined, a reminder that revolutions are rarely clean, and visionaries are rarely easy to follow. For us, as observers and as learners, Tesla's culture and controversies offer both inspiration and caution. Inspiration in the reminder that big goals require intensity, sacrifice, and resilience. Caution in the reminder that there is always a human cost, and that unchecked ambition can burn people out as quickly as it builds the future. Tesla's story is not just about cars and technology. It is about people. People who dreamed, people who sacrificed, people who endured a culture of extremes. Some thrived, some suffered. All left their mark on one of the most disruptive companies of our time. And the controversies? They are part of the package. You cannot separate Tesla from its leader, and you cannot separate Elon Musk from the controversy he brings. For better or worse, it is all part of the story. In the end, Tesla teaches us this: innovation is messy. It is not smooth, not easy, not free of conflict. It demands a price, and those who chase it must be ready to pay. Tesla's broader impact on the auto industry. When the history of automobiles is written, Tesla will not just be remembered for its own cars. It will be remembered for how it forced an entire industry to change. Because before Tesla, the auto industry was stagnant. It moved cautiously, incrementally, bound by tradition and comfort. After Tesla, it was shaken, disrupted, and compelled to face a future it had long resisted. Think about where the industry stood in the early 2000s. Electric cars were a punchline. General Motors had killed its EV1. Automakers insisted that consumers didn't want electric cars, that the technology wasn't ready, that the economics didn't work. Their focus was on bigger SUVs, on maximizing profits from gas vehicles, on protecting the status quo. Innovation was slow, safe, predictable. Then came Tesla. First the Roadster, then the Model S, and finally the Model 3. With each release, Tesla shattered the myths that the industry had clung to. Electric cars were too slow? Tesla proved they could outrun Ferraris. Too short on range? Tesla broke the 300-mile barrier. Too boring? Tesla built cars people lusted after. One by one, Tesla destroyed the excuses. The ripple effects were immediate and profound. Suddenly, every major automaker had to take electric vehicles seriously. Companies that once dismissed EVs as novelties were announcing massive electric lineups. Volkswagen pledged tens of billions toward EV development. General Motors declared an all-electric future. Ford launched the Mustang Mach-E. Even luxury stalwarts like Porsche and Audi were forced into the race. Tesla had dragged the industry, kicking and screaming, into the electric age. But Tesla's impact wasn't just about making cars electric. It was about redefining what a car is. Before Tesla, the idea of a car updating itself like a smartphone was unthinkable. Now, over-the-air updates are becoming industry standard. Before Tesla, automakers competed on horsepower and styling. After Tesla, they were forced to compete on software, autonomy, and user experience. The car was no longer just a machine, it was a connected device. Tesla also reshaped how the industry thought about energy. Traditional automakers sold cars and left fueling to the gas stations. Tesla built its own supercharger network, giving owners confidence and control. This move forced the industry and governments alike to invest in charging infrastructure, accelerating the shift toward electrification. And then there was brand. Tesla didn't advertise. It didn't flood television with commercials. It relied on the power of vision, of story, of community. Customers weren't just buyers, they were believers. Owning a Tesla wasn't just about driving a car. It was about joining a mission, about being part of the future. Other automakers suddenly had to rethink not just their products, but how they connected emotionally with customers. Perhaps Tesla's greatest impact was psychological. It proved what the giants had insisted was impossible. It embarrassed them into action. The industry could no longer hide behind excuses, because Tesla had shown the world that a scrappy startup could do what multi-billion-dollar corporations had claimed couldn't be done. That humiliation became a catalyst for change. Of course, the story isn't just triumph. Tesla's disruption created chaos, too. Legacy automakers scrambled to pivot, often at great cost. Supply chains were upended. Oil companies saw the storm clouds on the horizon. Governments rushed to regulate, incentivize, and prepare. Tesla didn't just disrupt an industry, it disrupted an entire ecosystem. And here's the deeper lesson. True disruption doesn't just change a company. It changes the game for everyone. Tesla didn't just carve out a space in the market. It redrew the map, forcing everyone else to follow. For us, that lesson is powerful. When you innovate boldly, when you refuse to accept limits, you don't just change your own path, you change the paths of everyone around you. Your courage creates ripples. Your vision forces others to adapt. And in that way, the impact of your actions spreads far beyond yourself. Tesla's broader impact on the auto industry proves that one company, even a small one at the start, can rewrite the rules of an entire field. It proves that no industry, no matter how entrenched, is immune to change. And it proves that sometimes the future doesn't arrive gradually, it arrives all at once, driven by those bold enough to demand it.